Hello and welcome to Family Dynamics. This is my wife Shannon and I am Graham. We're not using our real names to try and protect our identities a little bit from our exes, and we won't be using their real names either. Basically, this is going to be a podcast on our families, which are considered broken families as we both have children, two exes, and we have a children together. We wouldn't personally consider ourselves broken. We're quite strong and very positive together. So yeah, some of the things we want to cover in this is general family day-to-day dynamics, our relationship dynamics, and mostly starting with this first episode, we'd like to cover the dynamics around our son Leo. He's technically my stepson, but the father is no longer involved. He suffers from a rare condition that I'm now going to talk to my wife about and ask.
So hand it over to you.
So I'll hand it over to you, Shannon. Why don't you start by explaining to us what Pompe disease is?
Pompe disease is a glycogen storage disease type 2, where the body lacks an enzyme in the body that breaks down the fats, salts and sugars, and without this enzyme replacement therapy treatment, eventually all of the enzymes become more like consolidated, more solid, which then gets stored in between the muscles and the vital organs, which then makes the organs work in overdrive and then become enlarged, which then eventually the organs just shut down. And with different strains of Pompe disease, on the classic infantile Pompe disease, they don't make it past 1 without the treatment. With infantile Pompe disease, they can survive at the age of 8. Sometimes. It's all variant, it's all unknown, it's still not as very medically known as much. It's still everyone's learning with this new disease and how to support it and facilitate it and treat it. So with the onset Pompe disease, some of them won't even get a reaction or any type of weakness or muscle weakness until they were like 50, 30, 20. It can happen anytime, which is the complexities of Pompe disease. It's basically a muscle degenerative disease.
So you said it's some people it can happen in later life. How soon did you know that your son was suffering from this condition?
I didn't know that he was suffering with the condition. I just knew something was wrong at about 2 months. 2 months into the afterbirth. I mean, the pregnancy was normal. There was no signs of any abnormalities. So when I had the scans, there was not the nurse or anyone wasn't saying there was something wrong with the baby in the belly. So I had none of that. Everything was normal. The delivery was normal. Everything was fine. It was just when I was breastfeeding, he was struggling to latch on the breast, and he would be almost choking on the milk. So he would.
Just for our viewers' sake, that's not abnormal in most children, is it? So how did you know that was abnormal in yours?
Because of the long-term reoccurring. So with children, I was constantly going to the doctors, which they did say, it does happen, colic. It could be he's just not coping with the teeth, probably just wants to go in the bottle, which is what people probably would go to, but I refused. I was at the point of syringing the breast milk in because my personal belief is a breastfeeding is a good start to a baby's life. So I was pretty much at that point still am pro breastfeeding to help give the child a good start, even if it is for about, it could be as little as anything of like breastfeed for 2 weeks. You've still done an amazing job. You've still given that baby a really good start. But I pushed it with Leo for 6 months. Anyway, back on the topic. There was just abnormalities that he was struggling to keep the food down even. He'd be vomiting, guzzled the milk down, he'd vomit it. It'd be like he'd choke and couldn't swallow the fluid. So I kept on going to the doctors every month and asking them for their help. So I'd the doctors about this concern, and they would say, oh, it's just colic. So they'd give me Diorolite and send me off. And it didn't solve the answer. He kept on struggling. So I reached out to the breastfeeding community to like, am I breastfeeding wrong? I'm a first-time mum. I'm only about 20 at this point. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm going to ask as much as help from the professionals as possible, which is common sense, but you should do that. So the breastfeeding team turned up to my house and I was told to show him how he would latch onto my breast, if I'm doing it right or I'm doing it wrong. He latched on. They were like, you've done a great job, there's no issue, I've got no concern, you're not doing it wrong. But I was telling them, he's doing it now, but give him half an hour, he's going to vomit and not stomach this. And how he's drinking it, he's not coping. When it gets to a certain point when he suckles, it's like he just chokes on it, he can't swallow. He's struggling with swallowing is pretty much what I was dots. They were like, no, you're doing fine. Left. I was a bit